present For the Record with Neil Heinen. Catching up with REAP is next on For the Record. Thanks for joining us. I'm Neil Heinen. Now in its 23rd year, REAP Food Group is one of Greater Madison's most important civic institutions. REAP is about good food and good food systems and the power of both to transform communities, economies, and the health and well-being of people. Its reach and its impact have grown considerably over 2 decades, as the global conversation around food has also grown in sophistication and purpose. With the food movement, however, there is always more that can be done, and to bring us up to date on REAP's participation in that work is Executive Director Helen Sarakinos. Good to see you, Helen.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming back on. It's been a while.
Always a pleasure.
So, I no longer talk about what REAP stands for. I don't even know if it has any meaning anymore. But we'll just start with REAP. Give us an update on REAP, and just a little bit for people who are not familiar with it.
Okay.
Who are some of your partners, and how does REAP work?
Sure. REAP is we're a sustainable food organization. Our mission, very succinctly, is we aim to transform communities, economies, and lives through the power of good food. Yeah. We recognize food it's a system. Our food system, the way we think of energy, the way we think of water, it touches on our health, it touches on our environment, it touches on our economy. And simply put, the organization and our membership believe that the way we've had deeper discussions about building sustainable energy and building clean water practices, we need to do the same for food, to better the health of residents, to sustain our farming culture in the state, to protect our natural resources, and to strengthen our regional economy. And so our programs touch on, we do this on the ground with our various programs, but we're also aiming to educate the public and build advocates for this.
Yeah. You say food system,
yeah.
And I mean, I think that's a really important concept, but is it fair to say there are multiple food systems, right? There's a global food system, there's a national food system, there's regional food systems, and then there's very local, right, kind of micro food systems.
Yeah, I think it's one of those terms we throw around but maybe isn't very intuitive to people.
Yeah.
Essentially, when we talk about the food system, it's imagine everything that happens from when someone puts a seed in the ground to that plant, or I should say an animal on the land. Everything that happens from when that begins to the growing of food, to the moving it to places where people consuming, to its preparation, to what we do with waste products. It's a cycle, and it's a system. And the decisions we make along the way really have the power to affect the growers, the eaters, and really our democracy and our local decision making. So REAP has, for over 2 decades, really been shining a light on the value of growing this, the local decision making, supporting local producers, and ensuring that we have access for all of our residents to good food. And when we say good food, we don't just mean food that's grown locally. While that's a really important concept to support and to embrace our local farmers and growers and producers and businesses, it really only begins to touch at the power of food. You want food that's grown in a way that sustains our land and water and air, food that produces just decent wages for the people who grow it, prepare it, and distribute it. Healthy practices for animals and animal husbandry, and fair access to everyone. It's a really deep conversation.
Yep.
And maybe to address your point about lots of food systems, I think that's really important, because there is no one way to feed the world. We need those systems. We need the global systems to do some of that, but we need to build back up our smaller regional systems. I think they've been very neglected in the last 50 years.
I mean, good food is it's a powerful term. It's an evocative term, and I think we want to continue to use it. It's one thing, people need to understand that there's the fair and the clean component of good food. And then there are others that just have to finally, it's not just about food that tastes good. I mean, good food is just not about enjoyable food.
Right.
But it has all of those other elements to it.
Absolutely. But I will say, you know, we live through our hearts, right? So not everybody's up in their head talking about making decisions that are just the logical thing to do. Food is deeply cultural to us, and it has the ability to bring the community together. It has the ability to help you define yourself as a person. It's a really powerful piece, and so part of how we do our work is not only to educate and to network people to each other, but to celebrate this.
Right. I mean, it's a lot of clean and fair food is very enjoyable to eat.
Yeah.
It tastes good. I mean, it's an enjoyable experience.
Right.
And that's kind of the end result of a sustainable and good, a food system that works.
Yes.
So just talk a little bit about the REAP organization.
Sure.
Who are you? Who are your partners? Where are you found in the community?
So our physical presence is in Madison. Our focus is largely within southern Wisconsin. And that is, I think the best way we cover that is if you pick up a copy of our Farm Fresh Atlas. You see it covers more than just Dane County. It stretches from Viroqua. It goes almost as far south as Janesville. It is that whole region. Is an area that we focus on, but also because we oversee the farmfreshatlas.org, which is now the coming together of the 6 regional atlases around the state. We really have we have a footprint at a statewide level as well, and the ability to both do outreach and to organize growers and consumers at a statewide level.
All right, now you have to describe the atlas.
Sure.
What?
Yeah. Okay, so the Atlas, the Farm Fresh Atlas, many people might have seen this either at farmers markets themselves or in various retail outlets all around the city, libraries, and we put this out every year. It's been, I want to say, close to at least 14 years, maybe longer. And the initial goal of this atlas was to connect individual consumers, eaters like you and I, to local farms and to farmers markets. And it has grown every year. We're at over 100 farms in there from just our region. We have dozens of farmers markets in the area. But it has become more than just a listing of farms and farmers markets. The Farm Fresh Atlas, everybody who puts their name in there is committing to a pledge, and it's a good food pledge. It is a pledge to grow food sustainably, that they get to make their own decisions for their farms, that they are striving to meet the bar of family supporting wages, right? This is really a network of good food producers and supporters. And so I want to point every individual, if you talk about today, what is something you can do to strengthen our food system is pick up that atlas and decide to spend your dollars with these listees. And they're restaurants, they're businesses, they're farmers, they're farmers markets. They are doing the hard, good thing and investing in our local food system, and we should vote with our dollars to keep supporting that. That is something every person can do.
It's a comprehensive resource, and it's a resource you can trust.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, I want to know kind of where REAP is headed in 2020. We're going to do that with Helen Sarakinos when we come back right after this.
For the Record, sponsored by MG&E, your community energy company.
Every day, you give it your all. So U.S. Cellular thinks it's time you took some off. 50% off. Switch to U.S. Cellular now and get 50% off select smartphones, like the Samsung Galaxy S10e or the Google Pixel 4. 50% off. Wait, you want more? Here you go. A whole lot of amazing phones, 50% off. You give it your all, take some back. Now that's fair. U.S. Cellular. Choose fair.
This is it. Ashley Home Store's President's Day sale is Saturday through Monday with a preview day Friday. For 72 hours only, get the best holiday discounts on everything in the store. Living rooms, bedrooms, mattresses, and more. Save up to 60% off dozens of unbeatable doorbusters store-wide. Hurry in and get our best financing offer ever. 6 years with no interest charges and only sales tax and delivery due at checkout. Plus, this is your last chance at our biggest sleep sale of the entire year. The Mattress Marathon. Through President's Day Monday. Only at Ashley Home Store. This is home.
Winter in Wisconsin, it's the time for going all the way up and throwing down. It's a time for discovering something cool and gathering somewhere warm. Whether you want to spend winter inside, outside, or both, there's something for everyone in Wisconsin.
This election season, politicians are targeting Wisconsin, making promises and claims to capture your vote. But you deserve the truth. Only Reality Check gives you the tools you need to make informed choices. I'm News 3 Now political reporter Amy Reed. I'm breaking down political ads, explaining whose money is behind them and separating truth from misinformation. Get the facts with Reality Check, only on News 3 Now.
I am back with Helen Sarakinos, the Executive Director of REAP Food Group, and we are talking about REAP's work and kind of where it's headed. And just, make the transition, Helen, from 2019 to 2020 and sort of the conversations within REAP about, where you are and where you want to be.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for asking about that. We have been, as an organization, board, staff, and supporters, having a conversation about, how do we want to talk about food? So it was really easy 20 years ago to talk about the importance of local food, and it encapsulated a lot of the more complex pieces about food systems, right? Like supporting your local farmer, a farm-to-table movement. You realize now food as a driver of human progress it's a lot more complicated. But we also felt like it was important to say that this is not just about local. A good food system has to encompass local is a very important piece of it, and not only for local growers, but again to keep decision making about our food more local and not leave it in the hands of multinational global companies or frankly Washington DC entirely. So local is a vital part of that good food concept, but so is sustainable, and by sustainable meaning practices that continue to steward our resources. Again, we can't farm today like our clean water is not going to be there tomorrow. I mean, we absolutely need to find, and I think our farmers in Wisconsin, many of these family farms are doing it. They're stewarding their land and water resources. There are ways to farm that are important for climate mitigation, that are important for clean water, that are important to keep our soil on the land and not down the Mississippi River. They should be highlighted and supported for doing this important work. Wages, I mean, food service and agriculture, we need to have tomorrow's farmers and tomorrow's food service workers, and that's a social justice issue. Many of them are not being paid a living wage, and striving to value that work, and again, to honor and reward businesses trying to do right by their workers is a hugely important piece of the good food movement. These are all components that drive, when we talk about who should we be supporting, these are the values that we're aiming to highlight in our growers, producers, and businesses, and to point people to why they should be supporting them.
Yeah. It's interesting, Helen, because I think that was one of the challenges of buy local, is there this assumption arose that that's all we needed to do and farmers would be just fine. And in fact, it's so much more than that, and for some farmers, the assumption that that's their primary market was the local market was one that they couldn't, it wasn't sustainable for them.
Right.
So they need all of these other elements.
You do need these elements, and there's room in there for small farms, couple of acres, running a CSA. That's an important model, and we see that that's a very important model in Dane County. And there's a huge number at Fair Share CSA Coalition is the group that's highlighting those farmers, right, and how individual consumers can support them. We also have our eye firmly on the ball of saying, what about those mid-sized farms? So it can't just be tiny farms and industrial farms. What about mid-sized farms that are growing grains or raising cattle? There are operations that are doing really good things for land and for soil health and for mitigating runoff. And we're focused on trying to build their market too. And their market might not be just individual consumers. It might be institutional buyers, right? And this leads us to why Farm to School has been such a vital program, because it's an opportunity for a big institution with wellness of children at their heart to be a market for farmers and larger farmers as well, mid-sized farms. Yeah. So REAP's programming is not only about asking individual consumers or building the demand of individual consumers, but we're trying to build those networks into institutional buyers, and that's particularly our anchor institutions that are invested in the community, schools, healthcare facilities. These are, and prisons too, frankly. Yep. These are institutions that have as their mission the wellness of society, and that have a real capacity to move the good food movement. You know.
Interesting example. Jenny Gaddis, UW professor. You know Professor Gaddis?
Yes.
I don't. She wrote a piece in the New York Times just this past week. Mm-hmm. And in a way, it was a little counterintuitive, but it was pushing back against this notion of the only way to ensure that your children are going to get good food and not be subject to industrial, processed food is to prepare these typically expensive, time-consuming meals, and that in fact, the best thing we could do to make sure that children in schools received healthy meals was to guarantee universal, free food for kids in schools. I mean, on the one hand, it makes perfect sense. On the other hand, it just feels like it's a big lift.
It is, but you need to have all of us participating in a system to move a system, and school food being a system. Right now, in Madison Metropolitan School District, you have about half the population of children whose economic situation at home means they qualify for reduced price lunch or free lunch. And about half that technically don't qualify. We've been working closely for over 10 years, and very closely for the last 6 with Madison School District to really try to make changes in both how they buy local food and in education students about eating healthy, fresh food. And in fact, the truth is, part of what limits the district and what they can do is their budget, and their budget depends on how many people are buying into the program. Yep. And in other communities, and one that comes right to mind for me is Minneapolis-St. Paul, their food services director at the schools, the district food services director, several years ago went before parents and said, if I can hit this increase in participation in school lunch, I will commit to doing these things to improve the quality of food. But what he said is, or she actually, I believe it was a woman, what this person said essentially is, but I need you to commit to doing this. I need you to participate and to invest in the program, and if we can get that investment, we can make these changes. So, and they did it. They are a model nationally for their school food program. Another example, just last week actually, New York State has passed a bill that says that it's an incentive-based bill saying if school districts hit a certain percentage of their buy as local purchase, they then get an increased amount of reimbursement for each school lunch. So the way it works for school meal plans is you get a certain amount of money reimbursed from the federal government if you're part of the National School Lunch Program. You also get a piece from the state. And New York State put its money where its mouth is for its local farms and said, if you hit above, and I can't recall the exact percentage, it might have been 20%, which is high. It's a high bar. Right. But the increase in reimbursement,
the incentive is there.
The incentive is there. Yeah. To help offset that cost. So these are really interesting models of using incentives to push progress.
We got to get our last break in, but when we come back, I want to talk about Roots for Change.
Yes.
And where REAP is headed from here, and we'll do that right after this.
Ashley Home Store's 72-hour President's Day Mattress Marathon is Saturday through Monday with a preview day Friday. We've worked with top manufacturers to bring you our best deals of the year, including unbeatable mattress doorbusters you have to see to believe, like this deluxe cooling gel memory foam mattress for $449. Save up to $800 instantly on luxury sleep systems like Tempur-Pedic, plus 6 years interest-free. The biggest mattress sale of the year must end Monday, only at Ashley Home Store. This is home.
You know who really loves fresh food? Amateur chefs, stay-at-home parents, salad lovers, barbecuers, smorgasborders, hors d'oeuvres, fondue and flambeers, midnight snackers, brown baggers, bakers, and throw it in the microwavers. At Pick and Save, you can get all the fresh you want at a great price with same-day pickup and delivery. Because we believe in fresh for everyone.
The world awaits in your new Jeep from Don Miller. It's the President's Day event on now. The tradition carries on with the new Jeep Wrangler. Get your own Don Miller deal plus rebates and incentives up to $5,500 off select remaining 2019 Jeep Wranglers. No day is the same in your new 2020 Jeep Gladiator. You'll get up to $2,000 bonus cash plus your own Don Miller deal on select 2020 Jeep Gladiators. The President's Day event on now at Don Miller, Madison and Dane Counties Jeep Headquarters, Odana Road, Madison.
Don Miller.
Bone chilling, back-breaking, breathtaking. Winter weather can be a lot of things, but it should never be a surprise. Watch News 3 now for an accurate forecast you can trust day in and day out. And when safety is an issue, you'll hear about it first and fast. First Warn Weather, always reliable so you can plan your life.
We're talking about food systems this morning on For the Record with Helen Sarakinos, the Executive Director of REAP Food Group. Talk about Roots for Change. The big grant in 2019 to fund this work. A fascinating partnership.
I'd love to. Yeah. I'm so excited about this partnership. And so just from the context of why we're doing this, REAP, again, in sort of evaluating how we want to be in the community, how we want to help make change happen. Part of it is this education that we continue to do in schools and with the public. Part of it is a recognition that we continue to have some very deep disparities in both food access and in health outcomes for populations, depending on where you live, and the color of your skin still determines whether you're likelier to battle with chronic disease and other health disparities. And so part of what we recognize is we need to be stronger allies to groups that are looking to address this within their communities. And by stronger allies, that means making sure they have space at the table to bring their solutions and amplifying what they're doing in the public. So I don't have all the answers. REAP does not have all the answers, nor should we try. But we really should be trying to make sure that the voices of people who are directly impacted by food insecurity and by health disparities be at the table talking about what they need. Yep. And so this recent grant is from the UW School of Medicine's Wisconsin Partnership Program, and they awarded it to REAP Food Group and to Roots for Change. And Roots for Change is a Latinx and Indigenous women's health they're community health workers, and they're the first Latinx and Indigenous cooperative of community health workers, certainly in Wisconsin. So they have come together, and I love this because they're not a nonprofit, they're a business, because they say we have expertise and we should be valued for that expertise. And we are working with them. Their big vision is an effort to increase maternal and child health in Latinx populations and Indigenous populations in Dane County. And we have partnered with them to address for us, of course, addressing the piece around food. Their mission is much broader. It's wellness. It encompasses food. It encompasses health, specifically outcomes. They're really focused on maternal and early childhood. But we are coming together to talk about the role that food plays and to identify what is necessary and needed, and from the community itself, not from REAP's perspective. And we are there to help, bring that knowledge into institutions like schools, like the healthcare system, because we have the privilege of having that credibility and access.
I think it's a fascinating program, and what a great addition to REAP. We just have a little bit of time left, and I want people to know how they can help, Helen. I mean,
sure.
Support from the public is still a big part of REAP's budget.
Yes.
And, I was just looking at what that kind of support does. Almost 140,000 pounds of produce served in Madison schools, grown by Wisconsin farmers. Over 1,000 students in the farm-to-school lessons. 4,500 students served locally sourced snacks. I mean, it's a huge impact. How can people help?
Sure. Well, number one, become a member. reapfoodgroup.org. If you take a moment, your investment buys you access to that information about how you can personally get involved, how you can make an impact. It's lending your voice to a movement into system change. Sign up for our e-newsletter. That provides information, it provides opportunities for action, and it provides, just as importantly, opportunities to celebrate our food.
Yep. And you can always, and volunteers are always welcome.
Yep, to be directly involved. The Big Share, March 3rd.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's a good place to support the work.
Community Shares of Wisconsin. We're part of this group of fabulous change makers. That is a day of giving. Get ready to give. Support REAP. Support the many other groups. That's coming up.
Thanks, Helen. We're going to come back and wrap up For the Record right after this. Oh.